may, might, must, should, and have to? If your answer is yes, then I'm here to help you out. Hi, I'm Ruby, and in this lesson you're going to learn how to use modal verbs to express permission, prohibition, and obligation. Now, modal verbs doesn't sound so exciting, right? But once you find out what they are, you will realize how often you use them. And if we often use them, then we have to know how to use them properly, right? There are plenty of rules and laws that we have to follow. But there are some places around the world that have some laws that are so strange, it's hard to believe if they are real or even necessary. Now, before we start talking about modal verbs, let me share to you some fascinating rules around the world.
In Milan, Italy, citizens must not frown in public. It's illegal, unless you're at a funeral or visiting someone in the hospital. Visit Singapore and you'll find many tasty foods. But if you want an after-dinner stick of gum, you'll be disappointed. The country banned gum and gum chewing in 1992. You can't chew gum unless you can prove chewing gum has therapeutic value. Bad news for pregnant women, small children, and those prone to upset tummies. In Switzerland, you're not allowed to flush the toilet after 10 p.m. as it's considered noise pollution. Scots who really need to go are in luck. The country has an old law on the books saying that if a stranger knocks on your door asking to use the toilet, you have to let them in. And if you've ever been tempted to pipe up during the "Speak Now or Forever Hold Your Peace" pronouncement during a destination wedding in Australia, you'd best rethink that. You must not disrupt a wedding or a funeral. It is illegal, and doing so can get you a fine of up to $10,000 and 2 years in prison. Besides, if they made it to the altar, it's too late for you anyhow. Did you learn nothing from Ross and Rachel and Friends? Is it your time to go? Are you planning on coming back for another go-round at life? You're out of luck if you're in China. The totalitarian government recently legislated that Buddhist monks are banned from reincarnating without the government's express permission. So if you want to be reincarnated, you have to ask the government first. Seems like that one may be difficult to enforce. German babies must be named according to some very strict rules outlined in Standesamt or Book of First Names. One of the rules, the baby's name must make the gender clear. For example, Matty was rejected as it was deemed too difficult to know if the child was a girl or a boy. Got a goldfish in a bowl? You monster! Keeping a fish hostage in a container purely for your own enjoyment is considered animal cruelty and is banned in Rome. You can't put a goldfish in a bowl, otherwise you'll be fined. The Italians aren't the only ones who feel this way though. According to the Swiss government's ruling on animal rights, goldfish are social creatures and therefore must be kept 2 or more to a bowl or not at all.
Remember, every country is different, and every country has their own laws. I know some of these rules may sound strange or ridiculous, but these may point out some cultural values that might be different from our own.
Now this time, let's talk about some of the rules that we have around since the pandemic. Ano ba yung mga dapat natin i-observe because of COVID-19? I'm sure may naiisip na kayo kasi we should all know about these rules to win the fight against COVID-19. You can share your answers in our comment section. Meanwhile, here are some of the rules that we have in order to avoid the spreading of the virus. You must wash your hands regularly for at least 20 seconds. You should avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. You must cover your mouth or nose when coughing or sneezing. You must wear a mask to protect yourself and others. We must practice social distancing. We should clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces. We must stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Ilan lang to sa mga rules natin ngayon, and I hope sinusunod pa rin natin ang mga rules na to for our safety. Now, sa lahat ng mga rules na na-share ko today, I've used modal verbs. So first, let's look at what modal verbs are. A modal is a type of auxiliary or helping verb that is used to express ability, possibility, permission, or obligation, and many others. So these are words that express different kinds of things, and they behave differently from regular verbs, and that's why they're sometimes a little bit confusing. In this lesson, we're going to focus on modal verbs that we use to ask and give permission and express obligation and prohibition. Let's begin with permission. The modal verbs that we often use to give and ask for permission are can, could, and may. For example, can I borrow your pen? Could I borrow your pen? May I borrow your pen? Now, all of these questions are formed correctly. So maybe you're asking, ano po pagkakaiba nila? Kailan ko po ba dapat gamitin ang can, could, at may? The answer depends on how polite and formal you would like to sound. Pwede na rin natin sabihin na it depends on the situation and the person you're speaking with. We often use can to ask for and give permission. Let's say, for example, can I sit here? So you're asking for permission. Can I make a suggestion? Can I leave early? Now, aside from asking for permission, you could also give your answer or response to that permission or request. So you can say, yes, you can, sure you can, or no, you can't. Maybe you have experience asking your teacher, ma'am, can I go to the bathroom? And your teacher answered you with, yes, you can, but you may not. They've said that kasi can, as a modal verb, also expresses ability. So it means na of course you can go to the bathroom kasi may paa ka naman and you can walk, so you have the ability to do it. Pumayag man siya o hindi, may kakayanan kang pumunta sa bathroom. Yun nga lang, she's still not letting you go out. Ang isang modal verb kasi like can have many modalities, meaning marami silang pwedeng i-express. Halimbawa, yung can, hindi lang siya for asking and giving permission, but it also expresses ability. But we'll talk about them some other time, okay? Meanwhile, we also use could to ask for permission, but not to give it. Meaning, pwede siya for asking permission pero hindi siya pwede gamitin for giving permission. For example, could I ask you something? Pwede to, but you cannot answer with, yes, you could. Okay? Also, could is more polite and formal than can. Could I have some more juice? Could I bring a friend to the party? We can also use could to say that someone was allowed to do something in the past. Ang could kasi ay past form ng can. We use could not or couldn't to say that they were not allowed to do it. For example, we could go to any shop in the mall we wanted to. Ibig sabihin, dati to. Pwede kami pumunta sa kahit saang shop sa mall na gusto namin. Dati. Maaaring hindi na ngayon. Right? Both staff and students could use the ice rink. We couldn't study in the library after 6 p.m. May is the most formal way to ask for and give permission. We mostly use may for more formal situations, and may not is used to say that someone is not allowed to do something. So kung gusto mo talaga to sound polite, professional, and formal, you can use may. May I see your passport, please? May I use a calculator on the test? May I have another piece of cake? You may go as soon as you have finished your exam. You may use a calculator on the test. I'm sorry, but you may not enter the premises. To sum it up, can is less formal and more direct than could. When asking in a simple or direct way, we use can. Can I ask a question? Can we have something to drink? We are thirsty. When being polite or wanting to show respect, could is a better choice than can, as it is a more polite form than can. Could I ask you a question, please? Could I try this coat on? May can also be used when asking permission, but is much more formal. May I use your restroom, please? May I ask what your name is? Next, let's talk about the modals of obligation. When we talk about obligation in English, we can use must, have to, need to, and can't. Kasi kapag sinabi nating obligation, it's a duty or commitment. It's something that we have to do. We use have to and must to express obligation. However, there's a slight difference between the way we use them. We use have to talk about rules and regulations. The authority for the obligation doesn't come from the person who is speaking. Have to shows us that the obligation comes from outside the speaker. Maaaring yun na talaga ang general rule o law. For example, we have to wear uniform when we're working in reception. So if I'm the speaker, hindi sa akin galing ang rule that we have to wear the uniform. Ang rule ay galing sa company, making this an external obligation. We have to check everyone's ID. Ayan, so wag kayong magagalit sa guard pag sinabi nila to. Kasi the rule didn't come from them or from the speaker, but from the organization, right? Al has to work tomorrow so he can come. Again, we use have to kapag ang obligation ay hindi galing sa speaker. That is why we sometimes call this external obligation. On the other hand, we use must to talk about obligations that come from the person who is speaking. Sa mismong speaker na nanggagaling yung authority. And must expresses a strong obligation or necessity. Kaya nga sa notices, guidelines, must ang ginagamit natin kasi mas powerful ang effect niya. For example, I must phone my dad. It's his birthday today. Yung obligation that I have to call my dad comes from me, not from anyone else. Another example, teacher to student. You must hand in your homework on Tuesday or you will lose 10% of your mark. The obligation comes from the teacher who is the speaker. Or, last example, the sign on a plane, seat belts must be worn by all passengers. Tandaan natin, we don't use must to express obligation in the past. We use have to instead. For example, I had to pay 1,000 pesos to renew my passport last week. Dahil tapos na to, nakalagay dito last week. So we have to use had to. Had is the past form of have. So again, kapag tapos na yung obligation, ang gagamitin natin ay had to. Next, should is a weak obligation and we use it to give advice, telling people what you think is a good idea. So compared sa must, weaker ang effect ng should. So we use should for advice or making suggestions. And if you want to come out stronger, mas imposing yung sinasabi, you can use must. For example, you should study hard so you can pass the exam. He should see a doctor. Maybe you should go for a coffee or lunch and see how you feel. Maybe you will say, I think I've heard people use should in other ways, like, he should be here in a minute. That's not advice, is it? No, that's talking about what is likely or probable, just like the modal can. We'll look at that use another day. Again, we use modal verbs in different ways.
Last is the modals of prohibition. Modal verbs are also used for prohibition. These situations are the opposite of giving permission. These modal verbs for prohibition are used when we want to say that something is not allowed or permitted. So kapag gusto natin sabihin na ang isang bagay ay bawal, like bawal lumabas, we use modal verbs of prohibition. The modal verbs that we use are may and can, and they are used as negatives. Can't, must not, may not. Let's start with can't. Can't is the most common way to prohibit something in English. It is not as formal as must not or may not, but it is the most common. We use can't to talk about something that is against the rules, particularly when we didn't make the rules. Here are some examples. What does this sign say? Oh, we can't park here. You can't take photos in the museum. They're really strict about it. Sorry, we can't sell knives to under 18 years old. Can't is normally used to show inability, but in these examples, it shows prohibition. It is likely you're saying you do not have the ability because of the rules. Now, let's look at two more formal ways to prohibit something. May not is the formal way to prohibit something. Here are some examples. You may not smoke in this house. You may not wear shoes in the office. You may not eat in the conference room. Because may is the most formal, you will often see it in writing. Finally, let's look at the strongest way to prohibit something. Must not. This is the third way you can prohibit an action or make a rule against something.
It is common on public signs and notices informing people of rules and laws. Must not is used when talking about things that are not allowed. They are prohibited and forbidden due to either real laws, regulations, or personal obligations. Here are some examples. You must not use a cell phone. You must not write with pencil. You must not play music. Alright, we did it. We managed to talk about models of permission, obligation, and prohibition. Now let's have a quick checking of our understanding, alright? Ready? Number 1. Which one of the pair expresses an obligation? A. I must go to the dentist. B. I will go to the dentist. The correct answer is A. I must go to the dentist. Number 2. Which one of the pair expresses polite way of asking permission to do something? A. Could we go home now? B. Can we go home now? The correct answer is A. Could we go home now? Remember, could is more polite than can. Number 3. Which one of the pair expresses more formal and polite way of saying that someone has permission? A. Students may travel free. B. Students can travel free. The correct answer is A. Students may travel free. May is the most polite way to give permission. Number 4. Which one of the pair expresses a stronger prohibition? A. You must not leave the house. B. You can't leave the house. The correct answer is letter A. You must not leave the house. Must not expresses a stronger prohibition. Number 5. Which one of the pair expresses moral obligation? A. Parents should teach their children how to make good decisions. B. Parents must teach their children how to make good decisions. The correct answer is letter B. Parents must teach their children how to make good decisions. Kasi sabi nga natin, pag should is more like an advice. So, it's a weaker obligation. Wow, I'm sure you got all the answers correctly. Are you up to a very interesting activity? As you know, there are many rules in our lives. At work, at school, at home, in the public places, on the roads, etc., which have been established to ensure order and safety. Remember the rules that I've shared to you about COVID-19? Do you see how these rules are presented? It's very creative, right? It has text and images. This time, you will create an infographic just like this. Or it could be a digital poster or informational post, just like what we usually see on Facebook and Twitter, about the rules that we have to observe in using social media or online learning. For example, ano ba yung mga dapat nating tandaan pag gumagamit tayo ng social media platforms? Let's say, you should not make your private data public. Or, you must get permission before posting photos or videos showing other people. Okay? So, let's think about the rules that we have to follow when using social media or kapag nag-online learning tayo. And then create an infographic, a post, or even a meme about it. Just make sure you use the correct modal verb, okay? Good luck! That's it for me now. I hope I was able to help you with modal verbs. If you want more videos like this, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to never stop learning.